Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 48 of Therapy Thoughts with Lindsay. And as it has been for quite some time now, Randy Cash is over there through computer land.
Hey, how are you doing today?
I'm good. You like my new background?
Love it. Very
Yeah, it's not
homey.
ideal. It's very homey. Listen, well, I am in my home. No, it's not ideal, but such is life these days. We kind of roll with it. We decided we were gonna fix a little caulk area on the back wall and ended up stripping an entire section of the paint off. And so now I don't have very good lighting that way. So, I had to kind of like, what do they say? Like necessity, mother of invention, all of that. So here I am. You get to see the glory of my kitchen behind us. It's amazing.
Here you are. Well, you get to see the background of my mess. So, guitars, and I see a power strip back there. There's probably a cat laying on the floor somewhere.
He was there hollering at you a minute ago, right before we started recording. I'm cracking up. He's gone now.
He knows the camera's on.
That's hilarious. That is hilarious.
So, what you got in store for us today?
Man, I feel like I have just been like producing all sorts of videos lately that have gotten a lot of interesting discussion going on. So we're going to see how much time we've got. But for starters today, I want to dig in a bit to this idea of using comprehension as a very important key when communicating, when having relationship communication. It's almost like, I joked on Monday in my video blog portion of the blog that, go back to grade school when they would tell you, like, don't just read the words, really comprehend what they mean. And what's the message that's being sent. And I feel like that's really my message when I talk about comprehension with communication. It's that communication is great, but if you're not comprehending the message that's being sent to you, or the message that you're sending isn't being comprehended, then there's not a whole lot that's going to be accomplished. It's going to fall flat. There's going to be a lot of hurt feelings and misunderstandings. And honestly, a lot of stuff is going to get lost in translation.
The old saying, I know you hear the words I'm saying, but are you listening?
Yes, yes. I mean, I know I talk a lot about active listening, and that's a huge component of comprehension, but it's not just about actively listening so that you can like parrot the words back at someone else, but it is about actually saying, okay, so they said they feel sad. Let me think about that. Let me first clarify that what they are intending for me to get from this message is that they feel sad. Okay, is there more to it than that? Can I comprehend reasons they may feel sad? Can I understand where they're coming from? And if I don't understand those things, rather than just going, oh, well, whatever it is, what it is, actually sticking with the point and clarifying for, more efficient and effective comprehension.
I am so guilty over the course of my life of having been in the midst of a conversation with my significant other, and I found myself going, huh? When she stopped speaking.
Well,
But I've
huh
learned.
is better than ignoring, I guess, but it still may not be ideal. I think essentially, yeah, it's like you want to be able to, have that back and forth, almost like a ping pong game, right? Like they hit the ball, you receive the ball, you serve the ball back and back and forth and back and forth. And it needs to really be like that. And you can seriously keep that ping pong game going for as long as necessary, or as long as both of you continue that pattern of I receive and I give it back. Okay, I receive and I give it back. And I just think that's missing a lot from, communication. And I feel like in some regards, the whole concept of assuming, or like assuming you know what they mean, that is almost just, like, what would the word be? It is just the opposite of comprehending, right? Because when you're assuming things, there's a whole lot that's probably being missed. And then a lot of times people will show up either in my office or currently, electronically through a video meeting and be like, God, I just don't feel like they understand me. I just don't feel like they really, take what I'm saying to heart, or I feel like I'm talking to a brick wall. Like I say the same things over and over and over again, and nothing changes. And it's that whole thing. If nothing changes, then nothing changes. So we always bring it back to how healthy is the communication in your relationship? Are you actually listening to one another rather than just like waiting for them to shut up so you can say what you want to say? That's a big key, right? You're shaking your head yes, because that's a big key. And then the other piece of it is not only are you listening, but then are you actually comprehending the message that they are sending? And I think those elements have to all kind of swirl together in a really healthy mixture in order for healthy communication to be established. And here's the other big key: if all you're doing is assuming or like kind of placating by just kind of, yeah, and you're not really absorbing it, that's really where a lot of resentment starts to build. And time again, I have people that will tell me, I just get so frustrated. I've said the same thing so many times and I don't feel like I'm being heard, like really heard and listened to. And I'm sick of saying the same thing over and over again. In fact, it really sucks. And I'm to the point where I'm so resentful, I don't even want to try and have good communication because I'm just over it.
Yeah, I was gonna say exactly what you were saying. People, a lot of times, not everybody, but they give that they're just waiting for you to shut up so they can say the
Mm-hmm.
things that they want to say. So maybe I personally take a second when I'm speaking to somebody and I
Mm-hmm.
just gotta let it sit in for a minute, and
Mm-hmm.
things might spark another direction in the conversation that you would want to go, you would not
Mm-hmm.
have normally thought of.
Yeah, and it's funny. I have to give you credit for that, and then also tell you about when I first experienced it because we've been friends now for what, like, man, it's been almost 7 years. That's crazy to
Yeah.
think. But regardless of that, I remember early on we would be having conversations, and there were times that I would stop talking, and you wouldn't say anything, and I'd be like, "What's wrong?" You're like, "Nothing, dude. I'm just listening. I'm just like taking it in." And I'd be like, "Oh, I'm not you. That's weird. Why are you doing that? Like, who does that? Nobody does that." Like, it was just really weird to have it like reciprocated because so many, conversations I have in my life, you do feel like you're competing to talk or you feel like, you're talking over each other. And this was actually pretty early on in me realizing that my specialty area really is working with communication and yes, relationships, but specifically communication and how all of it sort of ties together. I was still sort of figuring out a lot of my kind of niche areas,
Both.
niches, whatever you call them. You know what I'm trying to say. But yeah, so it was really funny though, because you would just kind of like, you kind of sit there and look at me. I'd be like, what? Do I have something coming out of my nose? Why is he looking at me like that? And then you'd be like, no, I'm just making sure you're done talking. I'm like, wow, that's amazing. And it's a very like awesome trait to have. But I also think that even if you're listening to this and you're like, wow, I don't do that, it's possible to learn how to do it. I like to ask my clients to try and figure out like a speed bump they can put in their brain. So, like if you drive over a speed bump when you're driving through a parking lot, what does it make you do? Makes you slow down, right? So, how can we set up the same idea, but from a mental perspective, so that if you find yourself barreling down a path and just wanting to say what you want to say, how can we help you sort of slow your roll? How can we help you slow that down just a little bit so that it's not just you barreling over somebody and, dominating the conversation or interrupting a lot. And if you do interrupt, that you catch yourself and you go, "Oh, I'm sorry. You know what? Let me take a step back. You were talking, it triggered a thought. I probably shouldn't have said that right at that moment, but I did. So let's just backtrack some." I think having awareness of it and being willing to acknowledge it, that's also a huge part of this whole thing.
It took me a long time to do what you thank you for the kind words, by the way, to be able to do that,
Uh-huh.
I mean, it was a long my early 40s, and I got to a point where it took a second, like I said, to soak in, and it would take your my thinking to a different place, and I really
Mhm.
want to, as best I can, understand where the other person's coming from when I'm having a conversation with them.
Mhm.
Takes a second
Yeah.
sometimes to kick in.
It does. It's that whole empathy thing also, I think, of being like, well, man, I don't like it when somebody interrupts me and just starts talking over me. So I need to learn how to slow that down, not just because I want to treat them that way, but I also want that to be reciprocated when, the roles are reversed. And I think it's also about, making sure that that resentment doesn't have a chance to build. Because boy, when I tell you resentment is some kind of dangerous, powerful fuel, I am not making that up. It really, really is. Now, I don't want to be like all doom and gloom and make it seem like there's never a way to overcome it. But man, if you can avoid building resentment in your relationship, it's just going to be a better serve for everybody, right? Everybody is going to get more from it. And there's going to be a lot less backtracking and resetting that's going to be needed.
Yeah, I've never rebounded from resentment personally in any of my
Really?
relationships that I can think of. Yeah, I'm
Mm-hmm.
saying no. So let's try to avoid
Yeah.
that at all cost.
Yes, it's pretty toxic, and if you want to think through the steps, it's sort of like annoyance and frustration leads to resentment, which starts to lead to bitterness, and once we get to that point of bitterness, it gets harder and harder and harder to reverse those effects. It is possible though, and I think that's what I want people to hear, is that no matter how far down this path you've gotten, no matter how, sort of disconnected it may seem like you are, no matter how struggling the conversation or the communication might feel, it is possible to reset it. And honestly, that's the reason that I have gone through the steps to create the relationship communication guide that I talk about a lot. That's not me just trying to push something on people. I really do feel like I've taken what I've learned from relationship communication and put it into a 5-page guide that you can start using. And heck, you could print out multiple copies of it if you want to, because there's some brainstorming sheets where you can really start to brainstorm. What are your ideas? What are the things you're feeling? What are you needing? What are you wanting? And then I ask you to put yourself in your partner's shoes and do the same thing. And this is all kind of a precursor to the relaunch of my relationship communication workshop that I am just busily working on these days, because there were definitely some elements that needed to be, sort of enhanced. And I do listen to feedback. I'm actually kind of proud of us, Randy. We had a couple of weeks ago, actually, it's probably been more like a month or so ago now. We actually had some feedback that we were too chatty. And I feel like, we took that feedback and we've kind of streamlined it a little bit. We still have some fun and we kind of laugh a little bit and make fun of my background and whatnot, but I feel like we're doing pretty good.
The point of everything is to evolve, right, and transcend
Yes,
and become
absolutely.
better. Is what I
Wasn't
think.
that your word for the year? I think that was your
Yeah, that's
word for
what's
the
on my
year.
little thingy that you made me that I
Your
carry
little
around with
keychain
me
guy.
everywhere I
Mm-hmm.
go. Yes,
That's awesome. Do you really carry it
absolutely.
around
Yeah, I
everywhere?
do. It's on my keychain, man.
That's
Do I have to go
awesome.
get it? It's over there. Kitty
No,
just walked by.
no, I believe you. Yeah, Kitty just decided to make an appearance. That's really funny. Um, yeah, no, I like the fact that you've been able to, find ways to not only better yourself, but to kind of transcend in your own world. And then also, it is one of those things where I think we're always in this constant process of evolution. So it's awesome.
The point of life, I think anyway. That's what I'm
Yeah.
trying to do, man. I want to be like
Point of
the
life.
old wise man.
The old
Seriously.
wise man. It's also something too, if you are willing to do so, you can use past relationship experience as a mirror to learn more about yourself. And if you can use those experiences to not only better yourself, but to better future relationships, then I also think you're giving yourself sort of a step in the right direction. And if you're saying, wow, I don't really want to end the relationship I'm in, but I would like to be able to reset it, that's also possible. So today's all about just looking at the possibilities and kind of hammering home that idea that communication and comprehension of that communication is the key. So, I know recently you have started doing some comedy again. Are you having fun with that?
Yeah, I hosted this last weekend and it was a lot of fun. Out in
Well,
O'Fallon,
good.
Missouri at the Backdoor Comedy Club. And yeah, I had a
That's
good time.
awesome.
Thank you for bringing it up. It was really cool.
You're welcome. If people want to follow along with you and maybe come out and see you at a show or something, how can they find you and or more information about these things?
On the Instagrams at rcash comedy. Thank you.
You're welcome. It is funny. You always post on Instagram, but I always comment on Facebook. So you're welcome. If people want to follow along with what I've got going on, you can go to my website, lindsaywalden.com. Not only do I have a way for you to download the relationship guide there, but you can access any past episodes of the podcast, read any of the past blog episode or blog posts. That's what they would be called. And also get in touch with me directly. If you would rather follow me on some social media platform, I'm kind of everywhere these days. So you can find me on Facebook at Lindsay Walden Consulting or at Lindsay Walden Therapy. On Instagram, it's at This Is Lindsay Walden. On TikTok, it's at This Is Lindsay Walden. And then on Pinterest, it's Therapy Thoughts. So there are lots of ways for us to connect. I am loving getting to bring you this info and definitely want to keep offering things that are helpful. So as always, you can submit questions if you have them. I hope you keep living your best life while building the relationship of your dreams. And we will be back next week with more.